So this first part that we're going to be looking at is going to be more or less establishing a baseline for Nichol. Now, this isn't going to be a perfect baseline because she's still under a fair amount of stress. This is an interrogation or interview, and she's also pretty tired. However, this is the only footage that I could find that would provide at least a semi-reliable, nonverbal baseline for the rest of the reading. Notice her tone, body language, and mannerisms during this entire first segment here.
So when you go through the text messages, Tammy and probably Stacy will be there.
Okay.
So you guys know each other.
Okay.
Or if they reach out to you, you know that they're not the media.
Yeah. Can you guys give me your cards?
Yeah.
I got
everyone.
Okay. I just
Thank
now
you.
with this new phone, it's like I got so many numbers that I'm sure I can figure out the other one. I need to just deal with that. Like if you guys can help me get all of my contacts from this phone to
So I can get a tech guy maybe to help me because I'm bad at it
give
too.
me instructions
So
on.
this is your old phone?
This is the one that I use for communication. This is the one that's going to you guys.
Okay.
This one.
So if you notice the tone that she has in her voice, it has a specifically casual timbre to it. There's not any stress to it, so much so. However, an interesting thing to point out is that even at the point where she's saying, and they gave me instructions, her pitch raises up a fair bit, and that is common in points of stress. Now, as we continue to watch this, we learn that she's stressed about getting everything switched over on her phones because it's a stressful thing to do. So that pitch fluctuation is a fairly good tell for an indicator of a stressor in her nonverbal baseline. So if we hear that pitch spike up again, that should be a red flag for us. I'll give you a hint. It does this. It does this later on in the interview at some interesting points. But as you can hear from the rest of her tone, everything sounds pretty normal, and her body language is relaxed, albeit a little bit stressed due to the nature of her settings and her surroundings and what is going on around her. Let's keep watching.
Mine.
This is nicer.
No. iPhones suck.
I
I
know.
believe to have this.
Okay, so you want to move contacts from there to there.
That's all I want to do. Once you guys do that, then you guys can have this phone. I mean, he gave me a way to do it, so I think I need to connect to Wi-Fi, and then I need to download this app, and then I think once I download it, I can sync it up. And I need to just download the app on both phones.
So let me get a guy who knows about Wi-Fi. Is your password still 653038?
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
So that's going to be that one. And which one is getting all the new text messages? Your new phone?
I only got a few, and they're like, now I get what you're saying, like they're out of order.
Once again, another pitch change there. I only got a few, higher pitch, point of stress. This is reaffirming that that higher pitch is an indicator for a point of stress. Now we know as we continue throughout the rest of the analysis to look out for those pitch changes as points of stress.
They're scrambled, they're missing. They don't make sense. I got super excited when I saw them because I was like, maybe it'll be all of them, but it's not.
So maybe what I'll ask,
I will say that part where she's saying it has a higher pitch to it, but it's not that same tone. If you notice the difference between it, it's her doing the classic recollection voice. A lot of people will actually verbally recall thoughts in their heads in a higher voice or a different voice than their normal voice. This isn't out of the ordinary. So this isn't a point of stress so much as it's just her recalling, but you can tell that tone difference between the high pitch of stress and this high pitch of recollection.
a device that maybe we can download that too.
This one too? Sorry. I mean, I don't know if that'll work, but we can try it.
Here's mine.
Thank you first. Thank you.
And then Kevin knows how to get a hold of us after hours, and then I'm going to do that too.
I
Let me go
appreciate
get
that.
that. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I need to go with these
Oh, okay. Are you giving her a spare phone? Is that
She has her own spare phone, but when she linked her accounts, a bunch of messages between her and Chris were recovered on her new phone.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna probably just celebrate right now
Oh, okay.
on her new phone, so we don't have to take all her phones.
Yeah, no doubt. Are you good here for a bit? Okay. You have a monitor or anything?
please?
Okay.
All right, so that's going to be more or less the baseline that I get to work with for this read. Once again, it's not a super astoundingly great one, but it's better than no baseline at all. I would like to have a perfect world where she is perfectly relaxed and I can really establish where she is at non-verbally for her baseline, but this is going to have to do for now. That tone, that conversive, casual tone, and noticing those high-pitched spikes during points of stress. That's what we got from that first segment. We're going to continue in from here, where we start seeing some more signs of stress.
So your phone this time, do you have any objections to us looking at everything in your phone?
Why do you need that? I'm just curious. Like, why do you need everything as opposed to stuff?
So once again, there's that high-pitched stress indicator. He asks, "Are you okay with us having your phone?" And she answers what the question.
Why do you need that?
And it's that high-pitched tonal spike that we know is an indicator of stress for Nichol. So there's something that she doesn't like about giving her information over to the police. Now, this is to be expected. Anybody who has anybody go through their phone, regardless of if there's anything to hide or not, is just uncomfortable. So it's not unexpected that she's not really interested in this, but it's also still a point of interest and a red flag that I'm going to keep in the back of my head as I continue to read.
Well, because it's easier to get it. And if we're looking at all the material, let's say I take everything off your phone, I can put a date in, like let's say August 10th through the 15th. Because those are
Now, she said that she was thirsty earlier. She takes a swig here. Once again, this could just be a swig of water without any real repercussions. However, it is still interesting that this swig of water is taken during this point of stress. She just got stressed about needing to hand her phone across, and now she's leaning back and taking a swig of water. Now, you could take a swig of water just because you're thirsty, but you could also take a swig of water because your mouth is dry because you're nervous. This is another thing that I'm just keeping my eye on and keeping in the back of my mind as I continue forward with the rest of the analysis.
critical days. But other conversations between you and Chris, or other text messages between you and Chris from June or July, then it makes it harder for me to find all those. Do you understand what I mean? It's easier for them to just take everything. I don't know. Are they?
Yeah, I mean, except for when I first met him, it was such a easy thing.
Okay. And then what about your phone log? It's always his 9M0 number.
All the time.
Right.
Like it's
And then
always that one, or originally was his.
we talked about your GPS.
So she does a nose shake while talking about this, which some could see as it hasn't been that same thing all the way around. However, the rest of her body language, if you consider it all in context, that nose shake is less likely to mean deceit rather than just that's the way she moved her head during that sentence. The rest of her tone stayed the same. The rest of her body language stayed the same. There were no other nonverbal spikes to indicate that that could be a point of deceit. I believe that his phone number did indeed stay the same all the way through, judging by her body language.
Looking like knowing where your phone is at certain
I mean,
times.
you guys can have all that. I just was like, oh my god, there's so many texts on here between me and all my friends. I'm like, do they really want all this stuff?
Well, is there anything?
A little bit more of that higher pitch point, but as a recollection rather than a stressor. You could hear the tonal differences. So this isn't a point of deceit. This is just a point of recollection.
In those texts that you'd be concerned with?
Not really.
So, well, not really, or yes or no?
No, I mean, like, the other day, my dad and I decided to do.
Interesting. This part here. So he asked an important question. He asked, is there anything more or less that's going to be incriminating for her? And she says,
Not really.
and that is an answer without answering. It's trying to kind of weasel around it. That's why he re-asks, is it not really or is it not at all? And she has this pitch aggression increase, and then she leans back like this, which is really interesting. It's a weird cluster of nonverbal communication here, a weird cluster of spikes that's happening. If I were in the room with this gentleman, I would see that as a pretty noticeable red flag that in fact there likely were things on that phone that have been hidden, but right now there's not enough to be able to say that for certain. We have to continue analyzing.
Damage control, because a lot of people were like, hey, please call me, I don't know what to say. And I just told them all, like, I didn't say anything. I pretty much just said, if media tries to contact you, tell them no comment. It's like, please be nice to them. You do not need to talk to them.
She's really uncomfortable recalling this. Her body language is showing a lot of anxiety and nerves in this entire monologue that she's giving to this guy right now. She's got a lot of strain across her legs as she's pushing her body off of the chair. She's really leaning back. She's doing a whole lot of very odd stuff that wasn't there before. This is called a nonverbal spike. This would be considered a positive nonverbal spike. And what I mean by positive nonverbal spike is that where there was no action before, at a point of possible interest, there was a large portion of nonverbal action. It's a red flag to a nonverbal analyst when they see something like this. Something's fishy about this entire recollection and story that she's telling.
Like, safe, I'm in trouble, been breaking laws, and I was just like, just in your love and support, and that was all I said to people.
So did that prompt all the phone calls of people going,
No.
are you okay?
They were prompting me.
All right. And
That
that's
is why I did that, because I didn't even want to like say that, but I was getting all sorts of texts from people that were like, media's gonna contact me, I don't know what to do. I didn't tell them that I was a witness. I didn't.
So you heard that spike again pitch-wise, but you hear the difference. It's the recollection or reenactment tone that people take. I don't think that part was a lie. However, as everything else is showing here, I do feel like there is some reason for her to really not want them to have her phone. It would seem incriminating for her to be like, no, don't take my phone. I don't want you to see it. So she's kind of being strong-handed into releasing this. I don't know if they found any information on the phone yet, but from what I see, there's something fishy that's going on there.
Tell them anything about that. It was just like, just say no comment. I need you to do this.
Okay.
And then a couple of my like super, super close friends, I asked them if they would be courteous enough to take all the pictures that we had of each other off Facebook and social media, and they said yes. And that was like a couple of really close friends.
Is there any text messages between you and friends that reference anything that would...
So this sort of gesture that she does here, this is a self-soothing gesture. People who are stressed will do this sort of thing. It could take form in various different ways. It could be this fixing sort of deal, or hair rubbing, head rubbing. It's a self-soothing gesture. There are some that say, well, think back to when you were a baby, how your guardian would stroke your hair to be able to calm you down. It's still a subconscious thing that we'll do today, to this day, as adults, to be able to help calm ourselves down. She's recollecting a stressful thing that she had to do. That makes sense in there as well.
Be concerning regarding this case?
No.
Like talking about Chris, I think you've told me that you've never even really talked with
My friends about him. No, and like my friend's dad died like yesterday.
I'm not worried about that.
No, I know, but she started like, oh my gosh, I was really drunk last night. She started like freaking out. She's like, I don't know what's going on in your life. She's like, I don't know if it pertains to this case. And she like just sent me like a screenshot of a news article of that case, and she was just like, she's like,
What about conversations? Remember
I didn't mention that it had anything to do with that. She's like, I don't know, that's what it is. He works in Anadarko. She's like, I really don't give a shit. She's like, I just really need you to be here with me and my dad and this and this and this. And she was just kind of upset because I had asked her to please say no comment to the media, and it happened to be like right when her dad died. And I think she was feeling a little like, yeah, but I mean, you guys can read this. There's nothing in there of me actually saying anything about it. I just...
what's your phone number on that phone?
So she's still showing a lot of nonverbal spikes during this point, with nervous gestures, placating gestures, needless moves of things. Like if you watch her, she literally moves a water bottle without a reason. There's no point to it. There's just a lot of nervous activity while recalling this. I'm betting, I don't know, but I'm betting she's concerned that this friend could be a problematic point, maybe talking about stuff to people. Maybe this friend runs with their mouth a fair bit. Regardless, she's talking to the police about if she shared anything about the case, and then when she's talking about this friend, she's acting really nervous. So she might be worried that this friend is going to talk. However, it's also interesting that she quickly tries to divert attention from the question that the interrogator originally asked so quickly with a story about this friend. This is very suspicious to me. All sorts of verbal and nonverbal red flags that are giving me an uneasy feeling in my gut about this. And all of this is something that I'm keeping in mind as the read continues.
Yeah, that's the same phone number that's on that one, 556-9605. So no, I mean, you guys can.
So between... There was a conversation that I asked you about between you and Charlotte, too.
That's the same girl.
That same girl who was freaking out.
Yeah.
So was there ever a conversation about kids with you?
That gesture, just real quick, this one, it looked like she was actually rubbing her eye rather than doing this gesture that she was doing earlier. This is part of the thing where I was saying she's very tired in this, so that's kind of making it difficult to use her baseline with complete confidence. This is one of those nonverbal signs that she's tired.
You and Charlotte, I can't remember the exact context, but you guys were talking.
Hanging out with a guy who had kids.
Okay. And what?
He has not even
All right. So this little portion of the interview that we just watched really was showing Nichol having agitation and nerves and stress around the idea of handing her phone over and this friend. Those are 2 points that I see red flags from her as stressors. We're going to start seeing Nichol's stress rising in other areas and how it shows itself as well.
All right. So your conversation about him having kids, how did that go?
I mean, I don't know, I just told her.
Is it still, did you delete that or is it still?
No, I have no reason to delete anything else on my phone. And the reason I deleted all this stuff with Chris is because he was making me feel really uncomfortable and I didn't want to see it in my phone anymore.
Okay.
So right off the bat, when he asks the question, she does a mouth blocking gesture, and then she also has a pitch spike afterwards when she's saying, however, it doesn't have that same tone that we heard from before at the stressor points, but it does seem similar to that. That's something that I'm keeping in mind. And then she starts doing some verbal stuttering whenever he asks this important question. That could be seen as her processing, trying to come up with a lie kind of thing, or it could just be her finding the right words that she wants to be able to use while talking. It's something that a lot of people will do, especially if they're nervous, is stumble over their words. So it could be a sign of nerves for deceit, or it could just be a sign of your normal, everyday, average nerves that you would see in a police investigation or interrogation.
Yeah, let me scroll way back here. I'm going to scroll top a lot. No, she's
So let's just, while we're here, because we talked about this before, but we didn't talk about the specific context of what that message said regarding to children. So obviously in the situation that we're looking at now with the death of 2 children and all the other circumstantial stuff going around in the case.
All right, so we can see another sign of stress from Nichol in verbal stuttering. As I said before, this is something that shows up commonly in nerves for just about everyone. If you're nervous, you'll probably stumble verbally. So she's nervous here. It's just a matter of telling why she's nervous. Is it because of deceit, or is it just because she's in the situation that she's in?
I just want to make sure there was no comments ever made by you regarding, children or dislike of children or love of children, either way. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I guess. Let me find it. I think that's where this starts. You guys can just take whatever you want up to there.
So it's easier for me to just take everything than it is to single it out. Plus, for the purposes of this case, the less exposure, we already have, initially you drew concern from me when you told me you deleted everything from Chris. I've already told you that. You understand why. There's no question as to why that might cause concern. So if there's anything else that ever comes up, I have it, and then we can just discuss it.
All right. So I'm going to talk about something tonally and non-verbally that happens during this question. If there's anything talking about whether or not you like kids, these are very important questions that he's asking, and her response is not matching the intensity of the question. And she doesn't really answer, and when she does answer, her pitch is much more low and airy. This is a spike from her normal baseline, from what we heard earlier in her conversational tone before. This is a spike, so we have to take note of that. Along with that, if you look at how she's facing, she's not facing directly at him. She's facing lightly away, and she's put up this arm. Now, she's masking it as a leaning on the head, so all of this could be read as maybe she's just really tired. It's a possibility. She is tired. This could be the way it's playing out. However, I just find it odd that in this sort of situation with this sort of questioning, she's not regarding it in such a way that it kind of deserves. If somebody is asking you if you wanted kids or didn't want kids or liked kids or didn't like kids in regards to a case where you're dating a guy who did some terrible things in relation to his wife and kids, then I feel like it has to have some intensity, or at least deserves some more attention than she's giving it. She's acting disinterested, and she's throwing up this partial blocking gesture as well. So this is a red flag for me as well. So far, every time that he's brought up anything about Chris and anything about the relationship that she might have with the kids, she's been doing some odd nonverbal behavior. This isn't turning out super well for Kessinger's innocence, in my opinion, so far, but we have to be able to try to keep an open mind as we continue forward, because there's the possibility that she is indeed innocent. Right now, I'm not feeling that.
Understand what I mean? All right.
Also, I have to apologize. This footage becomes desynced. You'll notice that. I noticed it. I just didn't really want to go and try to resync it. I'm not going to explain myself anymore. We're going to keep watching.
Right there. She starts talking about her and her fiance. So that was like weeks ago. And she hasn't brought it up since, really, or like connected the dots, or like said shit. I mean, you guys can look through all those texts.
Whoa, boy. All right, so a lot of blocking gestures here. A lot of spacing, blocking gestures going on as she actually hands her phone over. She leans back, crosses her arms. This is creating space, and it's also creating a barrier. She also does this. She blocks her face. These are all blocking gestures. Now, they could be partially explained, and what I feel like she would likely explain it as is as tiredness. However, it's just odd that it's happening right now when she hands the phone physically to the person who's doing the interviewing or interrogating. This is a red flag again. Nichol is not happy about having to hand over her phone. There's something that's going on there, whether it's related to Chris, whether it's related to anything else, I'm not sure, but she doesn't want to give her phone over. Let's keep watching.
And I don't know when that was. That was definitely when things were going good. So this is like weeks prior, I'm assuming. I think the date is at the top of whenever we started texting that day.
Look, this is
We talk a lot.
August 7th.
Yeah.
So I reference everything to Sunday the 12th.
So that's the only conversation like that on there, I believe, on my phone. I don't think there's like anything else. And she even last night, like, still wasn't even.
All right, so something that sticks out to me is the lack of synchronization between the interviewer or interrogator and Nichol. As things are going on, you would hope to see maybe a little bit of mirroring in their body language. He does some mirroring of her. Whether or not that's intentional or not is another question. However, she does none towards him. This just indicates that they're not in sync together. They are very, very out of sync as two people. If you see somebody who is mirroring another person or vice versa, or they are mirroring each other, that means that they are in sync with each other, and you don't see that here. While that's not an incriminating tell, it is something to note that she doesn't feel in sync with this person, whether that's because she doesn't feel like he's really there to help her, or because she's hiding something and trying to be deceitful, or because she's just so tired that she's not really with it enough to reciprocate body language like this. Any of those could be reasons, but it is something that I am still keeping note of as I do the analysis.
What do you mean by can tell he has a lot to take care of in life? What did you mean when you said that?
He has a mortgage and he has kids and responsibility. I mean, he's a father with a house.
You're even saying in here he's all about his kids.
Yeah. And she was like asking me somewhere in there, like, I mean, everything I had to say about him at that point was like really positive.
So she's talking very soft in this point. Now the question is this the same tonal spike that we noticed earlier where she randomly dropped pitch and lost interest and all these sorts of things, or is this because she's tired? I'm not positive. Both of them could be because she's tired. Both of them could be because she's lying. It is still interesting that he asks an important question centered around Chris, and she uses this tone again, and it's once again kind of centered around the kids. This tone and the kids show up multiple times. From what her body language is presenting, she isn't a big fan of the kids, or at least there's something suspicious going on centered around that. Let's keep watching to see if that actually comes to fruition.
Like, I think I made it clear that I wasn't like 100% sure this is like the man of my dreams and I was going to spend the rest of my life with him or anything, but I was enjoying the time that I was spending with him at that point.
You're referencing that he has 2 kids, and then you don't like that because you want to have that experience with somebody else? Is that what?
I just said I wasn't sure if he was the one that I want to be with because he had already like done everything.
Okay.
Like, I was like, it would be really nice to kind of like have kids and have my own marriage and all of that stuff. That was never anything that I conveyed to him.
That was interesting. Was it not? That was interesting. So she says that she enjoys spending time with Chris. She admits that. She said that she enjoyed it at that time. That was something that she loved. She never mentioned that she appreciated being around the kids. Also interesting. And then she says in her texts that he has kids, and she says that she doesn't like that he's done everything, has kids, and she then gives the explanation in a very stilted, broken form that she doesn't like it because she kind of wants to have kids, you know, and it does this pitch increase and it's all broken apart. I don't believe that that's the reason that she didn't like that Chris had kids. I just don't think she wants kids, and I don't think that she was wanting to have kids. I think she just wanted kids out of the picture. Maybe down the road she wanted kids, but right now she wasn't interested in it. She wasn't interested in Chris having kids. That's not good news. And I get it. Kids aren't for all people, so I get that. But in this situation, that's not good news for her. Not because she doesn't want kids, but because of what happened, if you take my meaning. So now she's going to start returning to her nonverbal baseline, so we'll see her mannerisms kind of shift back into their normal state.
But she found a really hard time with it. I knew she would, and she was like, can you make the wake on Saturday? And I was like, I'm really hesitant to leave the house. And I didn't tell her that, but I was like, I don't know, I'll try. And I'm going to go, but I'm not going to tell her until it's like right before I need to be there. And
So what is she reference of? Just is Chris the guy? I'm more interested
No, she
in...
didn't even ask me if she was just like, she's like, I don't know what's going on. She's like, you can just do it.
So you mentioned on your text before you were coming that there was other information that you thought of that was important again?
Yeah.
I want to talk?
Yeah, let me get so sidetracked.
I'll look at this when you do that, and then...
I'll just try to wear it.
Yeah, show me where it is.
She keeps putting her face in her hands. That is a common sign of weariness or tiredness, but it's also a common blocking thing. Think of it this way. Micro expressions and micro gestures can play out, but then you could also see the full-on expressions and gestures. Now, say you see something that you don't like to see. What do? You close your eyes or you cover your eyes. This could be towards something gruesome. This could be towards something that you're afraid of. This could be towards something you don't like. And it can portray itself in a full, like, oh my goodness kind of thing, or eye blocking or closing your eyes or anything like that. But in the smaller field, it can be something as a prolonged blink or anything along those lines. This can also be in relation to deceit. If a person is telling a lie and they know they're not supposed to say it, then they will block themselves off subconsciously. And this will come out in the same blocking gestures. So say, for instance, you block your eyes. You could also do like an ear touch or even cover. You could do a mouth cover. All of these things that are sensory receptors for you in this way that you block, those can be signs of you blocking out deceit. So is she blocking out deceit here? Maybe, but there's not enough to be able to say that that's what's going on here. I just thought it was interesting, and I'm going to keep watching from here.
I'm sitting here like I'll just say,
You guys talk a lot.
oh yeah. She is like right here. So first she sends me this. And she's not even asked me about him. She's saying he looks like her ex. That's when she first brings him up. She doesn't even mention me at that point. I don't even think she realizes it's the same guy. Like, legitimately. I think this girl is so wrapped up in all the stuff that she's got going on right now that I don't think it's even processing. I mean, you can just tell by the way that she, like, talks. You know, she's all upset because I asked her to not talk to the media, and it happened to be the day that her dad died, and I'm sitting here trying to comfort her.
Is this your best friend?
Yes. This girl is like my whole world.
I don't know, Nichol. From everything else that I've seen from your body language, I don't think this girl is your whole world, and I don't know that you would really qualify her as your best friend. But that's really not important to this. I don't care what her relationship status is with all of the people around her. I care about her relationship and how everything played out with Chris. This next part is going to be her presenting some irregular speech patterns, also another possible sign of nerves or deceit in the case of Nichol.
So is this a phone conversation or is this a text conversation?
No, this happened over the phone, and he told me that that was when I had said, hey, when you go to North Carolina, I really think you should try to fix things with your wife. And he kept asking, well, what about us? And I was trying to kind of take a step back and see if he would fix things before attempting to pursue things with me, because I wanted to know.
This is fascinating and something that is important to note. She verbally says that she takes a step back and she non-verbally leans back. That means that in her mind, that connection is there. When she says that she's putting space between something, she physically does that thing. So on that previous time where she leans back and does this exact same cluster that we saw, that's fascinating. That means that she really is trying to put space between her and that thing. Just a fascinating thing to be able to make note of in her nonverbal patterns. You could also hear some of that verbal stuttering as she's either processing and trying to recollect, or she's trying to come up with a lie that is believable.
But if all of these things he's saying, like, yes, we're getting separated, and yes, you know, all of these things that he's saying are happening, I wanted to know that it was like, you were doing this like you said you were prior to me coming in your life, and it had nothing to do with me, you know? And so for me, it was like, I really wanted them to fix it. I would have just, like, left the situation.
So tell me why Shanann calling a realtor.
I don't believe that's true. I don't think she wanted them to fix it. I don't think that she wanted to leave the situation. I really do feel like she had some form of involvement in it, largely based off of not only what we've seen so far, but also during that time, her pitch changes a lot. She does that same sort of disinterested, detached pitch pattern that we saw in earlier points of possible deceit. These are all pointing me in the direction that she doesn't feel as she's saying she feels towards things. She's also now started a blocking gesture, again with her arms being crossed tightly in front of her, creating a barrier between her and the person that's more or less bringing harm to her. Even though it's not physically bringing harm to her, psychologically this is a stressful situation, and subconsciously you'll see that in blocking gestures as the subconscious mind perceives harm and blocks you from it.
Him mentioning that they were going to be divorced. Why do you think it's important?
Because so after that he was like, she's the one who called the realtor, and I remember I was like, damn, that was fast, because I knew he told me like we were going to put the house up, but they said he was like, we didn't know how much to offer for it, and we were kind of trying to find somebody, and it like, so for the first few weeks that I hung out with him, he kind of like dragged his feet on, hey, this is happening, and then after North Carolina, he's like, yeah, she wants to put the house up. She's the one that called the realtor. And I was like, kind of taken back, not necessarily at the speed of it, given how long he said that they'd been separating, but the fact that she did it like the day after he supposedly sat down and had a conversation with her about, hey, do we fix this or do we not fix this relationship?
I don't like that the footage is a little bit desynced. It's making it difficult for me to see nonverbal misalignment with gestures to words. But from the rest of it with her tone and everything else, I'm still getting a good enough read as to what's going on. I don't like the tonal frying that she's doing. You can kind of hear it when it comes out. Like, you could hear the tightness in the throat. That will come out in times of nervousness. I noticed it here where I didn't notice it before in her nonverbal baseline that we kind of established. So while the rest of her tone sounds more baseline based, it still has this odd strain to it that indicates some nerves. She's really uncomfortable with this situation, to be expected, but let's keep watching to see if there's anything else that sticks out.
Why do you think he was removed or not interested on your Saturday night, wherever you guys were?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes, like, I think about these things and I feel like they're all assumptions, but at that point, like, maybe he already knew something that I didn't. I don't know. But it was just a complete mood change where he just didn't even seem that interested. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, we don't have to do that on Wednesday if you don't want to. And he was like, no, I know I need to get it done. And I was like, all right.
Okay.
You know, because I wasn't going to, like, force him to do it. If he doesn't want to do it, don't do it. Just say no, you know. And I was like, and for me, I was like, I was just offering to help because, like, I know what a tedious task it is trying to find a new place to live.
Right.
So during that time, she starts using this odd verbal pattern with a lot of likes and you knows. She doesn't use that elsewhere, and she has a lot of like possible insecurity in this. Now there's two reasons for that. Either one, she really doesn't know, or two, she doesn't have any confidence in what she's saying. And she did know, and she's being deceitful. I hope that makes sense, but there are some odd patterns that you hear in her tone specifically. Her body language doesn't do a whole bunch, but her tone certainly does. It displays some odd patterns. So either one, the times that she was recalling before are lies, or two, the time that she's recalling now is a lie, and it's hard to be able to differentiate which is which. One of them is odd, though. One of them is not true. I'd be more likely to believe that this would be the truth because a lot of people use likes and ums and you knows when they're trying to communicate and they're trying to think of what they're saying and how to say it, whereas the times before would be more likely to be deceitful because of the verbal patterning that displayed. I want to keep watching this and see if there's anything else that continues to affirm this picture that we're getting that she is perhaps a little bit more guilty than we originally were led to believe.
They're going to take that information and then an examiner who is skilled in looking at cell phone data is going to look at it to try to recover the deleted material that we're after.
I hope
So,
they can get
the deleted material is what I'm after.
I know it is. I feel so bad.
I don't think she hopes that they can get it. So far, that specific pitch that you heard there, again, that tone and pitch, has been an indicator of stress on every other instance that it has revealed itself. I doubt that that's different this time. I don't think she really wants them to get everything back. But I mean, what else would you say in that situation, regardless of your guilt or not? Would you say to them, yeah, I really don't want you. I hope you find nothing. I hope you can't get it. I hope it's gone. I hope it's gone like I deleted it to be. Because that would seem awfully suspicious. So when she's saying,
They can get it.
deleted.
I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
I didn't even, honestly, like, that's not even what I was thinking about. I was just did not want, like, any presence from him.
So you're okay with like doing
Blocking shame gesture there. This could be in relation to her shame of being involved with Chris, or it could be a blocking gesture in relation to deceit. Let's keep watching.
Take the whole phone.
Awesome.
Just take it. Because I feel like we've been trying
I'm
to
going to
do
put
this, like,
all data on here just
Yeah.
for ease,
take what
okay?
you need,
So
you know?
read that and make sure you sign it, that you understand that's good. We're going to take all the data. Once I have all that stuff, I'll get your phone back to you.
That's
Okay?
okay. I mean, I'm not even going to use it anymore. I'm going to just use this.
Okay. I'm going to still get it back to you as soon as we're done.
Okay.
All right? So next week sometime maybe,
Okay.
or the week after or something.
That's kind of what I was seeing in that situation. There's nothing really to add at this point. I was able to resync the footage with the audio. There's going to be some more glitches in the actual video footage itself. You'll see what I mean. A lot of this was pretty unusable, so I'm doing the best that I can with what was offered. Let's keep watching.
So what you're doing now, let me ask you about the text with you and Charlotte.
Yeah.
You talk about children, and he's got his own kids, and that makes you kind of uncomfortable because you'd like to have your own family. Put that in context for me. Is that a fair statement the way I'm saying it?
I mean, I guess. There was never anything I like said to him though.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Did you ever say anything to him about like
Never.
anything about his kids being a problem? Anything about his wife being a problem?
Never. I always try to be so inclusive with them. And even with her, when I was talking to her, it was
That over-the-top never verbal pattern that she just presents there doesn't show up anywhere else in the previous times that he asked any questions that the answer was no to. I find it odd that she's so adamant about this one. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Either one, it really, really is true, or it really isn't true and she's overcompensating. That seems to be more what the pattern would lie in from everything else that we've just observed. So during this sort of situation, I feel like she probably did say some things to Chris about this. In fact, I'm fairly certain that she did, but that's just because of her nonverbal communication. Let's watch the rest of this.
that his kids were an issue. It was just, this man already has a life. Should I go build my own, with somebody who hasn't done that yet? And then she was the one that was saying, I was engaged once and it didn't work and now I'm engaged again. And she's trying to tell me, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm on my second time of going through this. And she's like, I love this man very, very much. And she was saying, like, he's not gonna love you less because he's already been through marriage once and been separated and already had kids. Like, he's not gonna.
Those references were never made to him, though, about children.
Never.
So Charlotte, that's who you were talking with.
Yeah.
I'm not so certain about that. Once again, that it comes across as overcompensating, does it not? Does it not come across as an odd pattern compared to everything else that we've seen everywhere else throughout all of this? It never shows up. It just doesn't show up anywhere else until this point where he asks a very important question, and then this shows up. He's asked other important questions before, and it seems as though every time that an important question comes up, there's some oddity to her answer. And that's the case in this as well. She just presents this odd verbal pattern that I don't find to feel genuine. It comes across as compensational. It comes across as she's really trying to sell that she never said anything about that. I find it odd. To put it simply, I find it very odd.
So Charlotte is your friend. She's your closest friend.
Yeah.
You guys have this conversation, but it never went anywhere besides her and you.
Yeah.
He never mentioned it to Chris. He never said anything about your kids, or his kids, pardon me, damaging your guys' relationship.
No.
Or anything like that.
Never. And I mean, and even in that, it wasn't like I never said that his kids were a problem. It's just like he already has a life. I don't know about
Right. So in light of what's occurred, though, what I'm trying to make sure is that there was never a conversation that you guys had that he might have thought that you were saying, I can't be with you if you have kids.
I wouldn't be with him if I couldn't.
Okay. So I'm just making 100% sure that those.
I promise you.
Okay.
Like, I really want you to pull these texts because all the stuff I've been telling you will, like,
Okay.
sync up.
And I hope we can. I haven't been very lucky with your phones yet. There's been nothing but a pain. So this one's going with you.
Okay. I think.
Please.
That was a pretty important question that was asked there, and she did her normal pitch change that we've heard before and other points of stress, and she also put a little bit of space between her and the person asking the question. Once again, another point of stress. I can never certainly say that a person is lying. Nobody who reads body language and is trained to detect possible deception can ever positively say that somebody is guaranteed to be lying. However, we can get pretty damn close, and I'm at that point that I feel pretty damn close to being positive about her lying. There's a little bit more for us to watch, and we'll talk about it.
It wasn't even really the kids. It was that, like, he'd already been married before, and I was just like, I don't know if I, like, am in a long-term relationship with this guy. Is that something he would eventually want? Because that's something, like, I would eventually want. You know, I just...
So your concern was more about his prior marriage than his children?
I guess. I wasn't really that worried about him at that time. Like, if you read the majority of those texts, like, it's very, very flattering to him and all the many things that I have to say about him. It was just that I wasn't, like, 100% committed to him yet. I mean, I was monogamous with him. I wasn't seeing any other men. But I wasn't, like, hey, this is the guy I want to spend the rest of my life with. And part of the reason that I was uncertain, I mean, yeah, he'd already built a life, but honestly, like, he wasn't out of the marriage that he was already in.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not going to go tell the whole world, like, hey, I got this guy, and, you know, I'm going to take in his kids, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And it wasn't because I had any problems with them. It's just...
Okay.
Very interesting. So on this last little part here, I think she's telling the truth about this part. She didn't show any of the deception signals, the possible deception signals that we've seen throughout the rest of the interview at the other hot points. I really don't know that she was totally sold, but what I believe happened rather than what she presented is that she did in fact tell Chris, you have to get stuff cleared up for me to be in the picture. I don't think she was really committed to being the idea of a mistress for a guy who was married. I really think she wanted everybody out of the picture. She made it very clear that she didn't want his kids in the picture or his wife in the picture. And when she was asked about that, if she wanted them out of the picture, she showed a lot of stressors around that area. Now, it's not unheard of for a person to coax another person to do a crime. However, I don't think that Watts was totally manipulated into doing this crime. I don't feel like that was the case here. I feel like him and Nichol both wanted the wife and kids out of the picture. And I think that they were both in on the plan and how it was carried out. I'm not sure that Nichol had anything physically to do with their disappearance, but I do suspect and I do feel that Nichol did in fact encourage Chris to remove the problems. That is what her body language seemed to present throughout this entire interview. So I'm going to give you a backstory on these two in just a moment. Today I'm going to run things a little bit differently than I normally do so that you can also have the opportunity to test your own observational skills and perhaps use some of the things that you may have learned here on the channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this press conference clip for you in total right now. You and I will watch it together. Go ahead and head down to the comments after you finished watching this first little blip here and let me know what you feel. What stuck out to you? How did you feel about the conference? And then we will go into the backstory and my analysis. This is how I was able to do this in university, so I figured you might also appreciate being able to function similarly. Real quick, if you already know the story, please do not comment. This is for people who have not seen or heard or know anything about this specific conference and these people. So if you do not know who they are, this part is for you. If you do know who they are, just go ahead and sit tight. You can leave your comments a little bit later on. But let's go ahead and let's just watch it all the way through.
First of all, I want to thank my 3 oldest children because they are helping us to cope with what's going on. And then there's a young lad called Daniel Stevenson who tried to get in the house the same as myself, and Joe across the road, and the Butler brothers. And of course there's the poor firemen, the police, the ambulances, the doctors, the nurses, literally everybody who tried to help save our children. They couldn't. Excuse me a minute. Have you had enough? Yeah. We've decided that through our son Dwayne, unfortunately, the last one to pass away, that we're going to donate his organs to save another child, which is what we want, because if you can save another child, that makes us happy. It takes a bit of the pain away. And we can't express our gratitude to everybody that's been concerned with the case, with what's been going on. I've actually been down to our home, and what we saw, we just cannot believe it. We grew up in a community that's had a lot of problems with violence and God knows what else. And to see this community to come together like they have, it's just too overwhelming. We've had people from America, France, even the traveling community. It's just, we've been to see them. It's just overwhelming, isn't it? But I say I can't express enough the effort the police, the fire brigade, and the ambulance services, because what we feel, them poor gentlemen from the fire brigade saw what we've seen. You know, my heart goes out to them, because it's not just us that's suffering, it's them as well. It's everybody. But there's one thing I would request is please leave my family alone. If you've got any questions or anything at all, please don't come through me or my family. Please go to the police, because what's happening at the moment, you're disrupting what these officers are trying to do. So please, I beg you, leave us alone and let us try and live in peace and quiet. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Wow. There's the clip all the way through. So go ahead and head down to the comments now and let me know what you saw. What stuck out to you? What did you feel during that? Go ahead and follow your gut feelings on this as well. Just anything that provides feedback as to what you were observing and feeling and analyzing during that time. While you do that, I will go ahead and give you a quick backstory for those of you who don't know, which maybe over here in the US you might not know. It's a little bit more common knowledge over in the UK, but here in the US, you might not know. Mick and Marie Philpott are an interesting couple, to say the least. We'll focus largely on Mick because he is a large proponent of this. Mick was born in 1956. I know very little about his childhood, but I do know that as his adult life continued on, he turned out to be an extremely terrible human being. He was overtly sexist and chauvinistic and treated others quite poorly, especially the women in his life. Now, I say women for a reason, and let's just say his relationships get messy. Early on, he was in a relationship with a gal, and then she broke up with him, and he got really upset, so he stabbed her and her mom multiple times and was sentenced to prison for that. He was also physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive to the people around him, specifically the women in his life. Once again, the reason that I use the term women in this situation is because he has a long list of people who he has had romantic relationships with, and he also had, at the moment of this incident, a wife and a mistress who were living in the same household, and he was extremely controlling, demeaning, and abusive to both of them on many levels. He had 19 kids total, if my recollection is correct, and lived a life characterized by expecting others to give everything to him. He wanted handouts. He did not have a job. He had no reason to not be working. Along with that, he expected that he should be receiving bigger handouts than before. Mick had a life characterized by self-worship. He thought he was God, and he tried to surround himself with people who would treat him as such. So let's get to how this incident played out. He was living with his wife and his mistress, and he was trying to claim that everything was happy and go-lucky in his kingdom that he had created, when in fact it was not. His mistress wanted to leave and to take children with her. Now, he did claim that he cared a lot for his kids, but even more importantly to him, his kids were a means for financial gain without effort on his part. So the more kids he would have, the more money he would make, and so this threat of his mistress taking kids was not viable to him, because not only did he claim he loved his children, which we know isn't true, he also loved the money and attention that he got from it. Many people said that he wanted to be the star of his own show and was always reveling in the opportunity to appear on television on any level, including if he himself was being painted as the bad guy. He loved attention. Now, psychologists have clinically described him as a psychopath with antisocial personality disorder. So let's get to the day of the incident itself. Early that morning, he starts a fire in his own house with the hopes of being able to play the rescuer and go in and save his children from the fire that he himself started, so that later on in court, he could have the idea of being a hero on his side during the custody battle of his children, aka his little money-making machines. So he, his wife, and a friend started a fire using an accelerant. Well, needless to say, as fires started with accelerants go, things got wildly out of hand, and all of the kids ended up passing away from that fire. However, not all of them passed away during the fire itself. The oldest son was in the hospital when he passed away a couple days later from the wounds inflicted from the fire that his father had started, all in a battle to be able to receive more money due to custody of children. So that information was only given to me after I had finished my read. Now today we're going to answer the question of whether or not having a nonverbal analyst in the room during this press conference would have helped move things along more quickly, or would it have just been a waste of time? Let's go ahead and dive into the video itself.
First of all, I want to thank my 3 oldest children because they...
Okay, right off the bat, I want to talk about a couple things. He's wearing a white shirt, not that big a deal. He's wearing those necklaces, not that big a deal either. He regularly wore a necklace even with a cross on it. You can see that in the positioning of his body, he has the more dominant position than his wife does. That's neither here nor there as well. There's not too much to be able to read into that. Where it starts to get interesting is when we look at his face and then listen to the patterns, the flow of his words. He starts off and he has a lot of halting, a very jolted timing to the flow of his words. He's not speaking fluidly, and he does have the ability to do that. This instance of having halt in your wording can be an indicator of psychological processing, which could be an indicator of deceit. It would be considered a red flag in my book, or according to the methodology through the university that I go to, it would be called a point of interest. So a red flag or a point of interest has already popped up. Along with that, if you see on his face, he has an expression of sadness or grief with the corners of his mouth lightly turned down and his eyebrows turned upwards in the middle while being lowered and furrowed. This would be considered an expression of grief, except for 2 problems. One, he's trying to appear that he is crying. And as you can see, there's no tears or inflammation anywhere around the eyes or nose where you would expect to see inflammation due to crying. It does not exist. Along with that, his tone does not match the expression or the emotion on his face. These are 2 points of desynchronization, and already it's bad news for Mick.
helping us to cope with what's going on. And then there's a young lad called Daniel Stevenson who tried to get in the house the same as myself, and Joe across the road, then the Butler brothers. And of course, there's the poor firemen.
So when he's talking throughout the people that have been helping during this situation, he also mentions these people called the Butler brothers, and then his voice drops off dramatically there at the end. That is an indicator of an emotional relationship to the Butler brothers. And sure enough, the Butler brothers were suspicious the entire time. No doubt Mick felt that. So that is an explanation as to why his pitch dropped and his volume dropped so dramatically when mentioning the Butler brothers. It's this distancing aspect of tonal quality that was an indicator of possible discomfort between him and the Butler brothers over here. Let's continue watching this, and we'll continue pointing out the points of interest or red flags in this conference.
The police, the ambulances, the doctors, the nurses, literally everybody who tried to help save our children, they couldn't.
So you can hear forced emotion in here. He's trying to come across once again as if he's crying, and it's desynchronized. He's trying to force emotion without it being reflected on his face. So those 2 points are desynchronized. In that same ballpark, still, we have no tears on his face. So there's 3 points of desynchronization here that is still an indicator of a forced emotion. Now, listening to the people that were in the room, including law enforcement and journalists, they only knew that it sounded weird, was more or less their description of it. It felt off. These are the reasons why. And also, to pull attention away from Mick for a second, if you see Maride's face during this time, she has the same constant expression of pain. Now, as I have said in previous videos and will probably continue to repeat, emotion has a certain profile on a person's face. It has a build-up, it has a peak, and it has a falling off, and it's very synchronized, and it lasts for a short period of time, because emotions last for a short period of time. So an average of 3 to 5 seconds is what you would expect to see a full emotion display on a face to last. Hers has lasted the entire time, indicating that it's forced. She's pushing this emotion and forcing it to happen on her face. This is deceitful, as you can clearly see. So far we have Mick, who is showing a whole slew of desynchronization, and we have Maride, who is showing a very forced, prolonged expression. Neither of them are actually crying, despite their best efforts to show that they are. Let's continue watching.
Excuse me a minute.
He says, "Excuse me a minute," and you can hear his voice is just fine. There's no emotion in there. Despite him trying to force it in there, it's not genuine emotion. And then he goes to act like he's crying here, and when he looks up, you will see again that there's no existence of tears anywhere on his face. You could see the weariness on her face now, and not the expression of weariness. What I'm saying is that when you try to hold an expression for a very long time, your muscles get tired of holding that expression because it's not natural to you. Unless you're trained to hold a smile or something along those lines, it's not natural for you to hold that same expression for a very long time. Think to yourself of the times that you've had to massage your cheeks because you've been laughing for so long and you've been smiling for so long that your muscles are tired. Your muscles in your face get tired of holding the same expression. So now we see Maride look up here, and instead of having an expression of pain, we have a disjointed expression. She's trying to force pain, so the bottom part of her face, the lower half, is expressing pain in a very constant, forced expression, but it is still an expression of pain. The downward corners of the mouth are a good indicator of that. Then you flash up to the top of her face, and you see instead of pain, you see almost anger or frustration. And this isn't because she's feeling angry or frustrated. It's because it takes more effort to put your eyebrows like this than it does like this. This part here in the middle of the head, which is called the glabella, will draw together and upwards during sadness. This look here. But it's harder to hold that expression than it is to hold a purely angry or frustrated expression due to this small difference in the middle. So we could see that on her face, where her muscles are getting tired of holding an expression for so long that it's falling apart. This is another indicator of a forced emotion and forced expression, another red flag, and another tick on a long line of ticks of suspicious behavior from the Philpotts during this time.
We've decided that through our son Dwayne.
So remember I mentioned the halts in a person's flow of speaking. It popped up again here. So earlier on when there were halts, he was speaking of his children. Now he's speaking of his children again, and we see those halts happening again. So as I went into this without any idea of what was going on, I figured out that they were forcing emotion for some reason, and that there was something happening with the kids. I wasn't sure what that was, but there was some form of suspicious behavior centered around that. At this point in the analysis, I was starting to get a strong feeling that something was very, very wrong with these two, and it was in relation to their kids.
Unfortunately, the last one's passed away, that we're going to donate his organs to save another child, which is what we want, because if you can save another child, that makes us happy. It takes a bit of the pain away. And we can't express our gratitude to everybody that's been concerned with the case, with what's been going on. I've actually been down to our home, and
So here's another portion. During all of that time, you could see the same red flags continually flash up. But then during this portion, he says that he actually went down to my, and then he does a false start and recorrects it to our home. And that reveals the psychology behind Mick. When I initially watched this, I was like, that was odd. That's really weird that he would say that it's my and then switch it to our home. Now, I had no context for that, but it did show a little bit of his psychological character, that during this time of being in front of people, he would refer to it as his home rather than their home. And it's their home. He has no more stakes to it than she does. Neither of them are working or providing in any way. However, an argument could be made that she has more stakes to the home than he does because she oftentimes was the one who was doing the cleaning and the cooking and the taking care of the house. He was just laying around doing a lot of nothing, besides expecting people to give him things. When he says that it's his home, that's his initial and honest representation of his feelings toward the house. It's not theirs, they're not a partnership, it's his. He's the dominating one, it's his house. That's an indicator of his personality. Let's continue.
What we saw, we just cannot believe it. We grew up in a community that's been...
Just look at all of those tears that you don't see anywhere. And in my mind, I was looking at it and I was like, well, maybe because it's low resolution, there's tears and I just can't see it. But I paid a lot of attention. I threw it up on a large screen to see, are there any times of being able to see like a glimmer around the eyes, on the cheeks, maybe a little bit of a runny nose, anything to indicate that there's actual tears happening, and they're not. I could not see anything. And that was verified later on, and I was frustrated by that. I was frustrated by why they were trying to ham up this crying so much when they obviously weren't feeling it.
Had a lot of problems with violence and God knows what else. And to see this community to come together like that, it's just too overwhelming. We've had people...
So he's spending a lot of time talking about how the community has come to help him, and he's trying to dress it up in this idea of like, it's so humbling to see this community come in and help. But his mindset is centered around, it's so wonderful to see all these people paying attention to me. That has always been his drive throughout the rest of his time, and we can rest assured that that's still his drive now. So in that verbal patterning of spending so much time focusing on the attention that was garnered from this action, it's showing what his true goal was.
From America, France, even the travelling community, it's just, we've been to see him, it's just overwhelming, isn't it? But I say I can't express enough the effort.
It's almost like he realizes that he's doing so much talking and ignoring his wife there the entire time, which is pretty much Mick 101. So he goes in and does this forced isn't it kind of thing to where he looks at her and tries to acknowledge that she's existing, and it also still comes across as forced because it's inserted in. There's not a natural flow to ebbing into her side of the conversation, to her side of the story. It's just him being like, yeah, I'm drinking all of this in, and then, oh God, I have somebody up here with me. Isn't it? And that's how it plays out to us. Even though he doesn't make it that dramatic, that's exactly what we're seeing. And that's why. Let's continue watching.
Police, the fire brigade and the ambulance services, because what we feel, them poor gentlemen from the fire brigade saw what we've seen. You know, my heart goes out to them, because it's not just us that's suffering, it's them as well. It's everybody.
So he's trying to play it out as if he's had this very traumatic experience, and he's drawing in other people and being like, I'm so sorry that they had to go through it too, because obviously it was really hard for them. And the truth is, it was harder for the emergency people and the neighbors than it was for the Philpotts. The actual people over here who were desperately trying to help and clear up the situation and do their jobs, they actually suffered trauma. The Philpotts did not. The Philpotts orchestrated this. So these people actually had a hard time. The people that we're looking at now are garbage.
But there's one thing I would request is please leave my family alone. If you've got any questions or anything at all, please don't come through me or my family. Please go to the police, because what's happening at the moment, you're disrupting what these officers are trying to do. So please, I beg you, leave us alone and let us...
So he's also already overtly directing attention away from him. He doesn't want people coming in asking him because he knows that he's guilty. in this situation. So he's saying go to the police, which that's actually, I mean, that's good advice anyways. Don't go to the people that are affected, go to the police if possible. But he's doing it so overtly that it's obvious he doesn't want people paying attention to him. That's a verbal slip up as well, showing that he doesn't have attachment to this situation. He wants to wash his hands clean of this situation because he's guilty in this situation. Another interesting aspect of Mick's behavioral character sketch that we're drawing here.
So I'm going to be peace and quiet. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Wow. That was a lot of fun. So looking at this now through the lens of information, knowing what the backstory is, who he is, and what his nonverbals were displaying, there was definitely enough from the initial read, completely untethered from information, to be able to say that something suspicious was going on in relation to these parents and their kids. We were able to gather loosely through inference of just the press conference that something had happened to the kids and they were no longer with us, and these two are acting extremely suspicious. Forced fake emotion, desynchronization, odd verbal patterning, and a whole slew of red flags through his behavior that showed that something was wrong. And that's how this ends up going much of the time, especially with nonverbal analysis like this. You get a video file, and then you have to do a read, and then you have to kind of fill in blanks and infer and draw in as much information as you can to be able to help that inference be more and more accurate. But there are limitations. As I have said before on the channel, and I will continue to say again and again and again, nonverbal communication reading is on average 70 to 80% accurate with a little bit of leeway on either side. It can be pushed all the way to 100% accuracy given the right circumstances, and it can be dropped down below even the average guess given the incorrect circumstances. So with these sorts of circumstances and the very overt displays of desynchronization that we saw here, by the time I had finished this analysis first time around, I was about 90 to 95% sure that they were involved somehow with something bad in relation to their kids. So you can get things from video clips like this without having a massive backstory, just due to certain universalities in nonverbal tells. Today we're going to be looking at the case that has been so often requested for me, and that is the case of Jodi Arias. Now, just so you know, I'm not going to dive real deep into the backstory of all of this because there is already an excellent video out on that, which is coming from JCS, Criminal Psychology. I've linked the video below, so if you would like to be able to know what this case is and all of the details centered around it, go check that video out. He does an excellent job at research, and it saves me a little bit of time. So today's video is going to be centered around the body language of Jodi Arias in a few different instances. I was going to say two, but there's a few. That being said, I suppose I can give a small timeline. Back in 2006, Jodi Arias met Travis Alexander at a conference. They didn't have an immediate connection, but they kind of flirted back and forth until they developed a relationship. Then things got messy from there in the following years to where eventually there was a breakup and Travis said some things and Jodi said some things, and he eventually didn't want to have anything to do with her, but kept up sexual relations with her, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess all the way around. But the issue is that Jodi became a little bit stalker-like. She became very obsessive with Travis, showing up at his house uninvited, watching him just sit and do things, very creepy, kind of stalkery style of things, which didn't settle well with Travis, but it still also didn't discourage him from keeping up intimate relations with Jodi. Long story short, we boil down to the day of the incident. The day of the incident. And it gets bad. They go through this entire time of intimate relations, including photo taking, which that comes into play, and I'll explain why in a second. And then after the photo taking, it is shown that Jodi grabs a knife, and I'll let you fill in the rest of the story for sake of content guidelines. I won't tell you what happens, but it happens 27 times, along with a gunshot as well. Now, Jodi then leaves that crime scene, goes off into some other place, calls Travis's number to try to give herself an alibi, and then continues on about the day. People start suspecting Jodi because friends weren't a big fan of Jodi because she was so obsessive and hovery and stalker-like. So the police start investigating her, and the biggest issue is that she, in fact, had tried to destroy said camera where the photos were being taken, and they were explicit photos, and they were able to find said camera in the wash machine of Travis's apartment. The camera was in the wash machine and the memory card had been formatted or the photos had been deleted. Now, most people don't realize, but just because you delete an SD card, it doesn't mean that the information is gone. In fact, you can even pay a small fee online and recover said photos from said memory card. Jodi didn't understand that. She thought that just because she deleted it and washed the camera, that would be enough to get rid of all the evidence. It was not. The law enforcement recovered the photos, and in the metadata of the photos, they found the timestamps, which put Jodi at the crime scene irrefutably. So this is one of those cases that I'm not here to tell whether or not she's guilty. I am here to tell whether or not we can see from somebody who lies so well if there are any nonverbal tells that could have helped enlighten police at the time. This is one of those cases that we have the wonderful privilege of 2020 hindsight and concrete evidence proving her guilt. But that being said, there is still stuff to learn from how she presents herself and the psychology around the entire case. I'm going to go through this and analyze, like I said, a few different clips. I know that there are parts that you want me to analyze, and I will do it because why the hell not? You wanted this. This is what you wanted from me. You wanted me to look at this area, which I'm going to be real honest here. I don't fully buy the idea that Jodi doesn't know there's a security camera in the room. Most people expect it. She even brings light to, you can see on the little side table here, there's 2 sound recorders there. She even brings light to those. So she knows that oftentimes these are being recorded. And also there's a segment in the footage where it looks as if she's looking directly at the camera. I feel like this is a show. I feel like this is a show that she's putting on. I don't have any proof for that, but it's the only really plausible explanation for this. She has very strange behavior that doesn't line up with any other behavioral patterns. Throughout the rest of her interview, she's acting very eclectic, very eccentric, and over the top. It's very theatrical and forced. We'll watch the rest of these really weird things that she does here just so you could see it, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's not really enough to work off of non-verbally here to be able to say whether or not it's true or not, and it doesn't really matter. It's not really a learning instance. It's absolutely just a what the hell kind of instance. Forced laugh. That laugh is very forced. It's not humor-based. It's just a forced one, which is what also led me to believe that she's just acting insane for the camera, which Jodi tried to pull off a persona the entire time. And it was this idea of personas that she tried to pull off that really made this interesting for me on a psychological standpoint. She tried to elevate Travis. She tried to tear down Travis. She tried to lie. She lied multiple times throughout multiple different fake and proven wrong alibis all the way across, just clambering across a poorly done crime that was just a catastrophe. My bet is that she has always been able to manipulate her way through whatever system that she's working in, and she tried to do so here and realized that most of the time law enforcement doesn't care what your manipulation is. They just want to get to the truth, and they will do whatever they can to get to that truth, and they did. And Jodi is where she belongs. This is just a shit show. This entire display, the interviews, everything is just a catastrophe. If you haven't watched that video that I suggested you watch at the beginning of this, go go and watch it before coming back here. I know that that's not really convenient to click away from a video to come back to it, but I promise you it's going to be worth your while, and you will get more out of this video from that. But let's watch the rest of this carnival of a display.
Still beating. It might change my memory.
Different day here. Back on the day before now.
Goodness.
Another fake laugh.
Says, yes, I'm Christian. I just live my life by the 10 Commandments, and those are my rules. Da, 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 da. You know, thou shalt not this or that, but it doesn't say thou shalt. So I just used to joke about that.
It does specifically say thou shalt not murder, though, so I think she missed that one just a little tiny bit, as was proven by the DNA and physical evidence that was at the scene. So, sorry, Jodi, your 10 Commandments live by kind of thing just went right out the window. Keep in mind, the police are watching this the whole time. They see her doing this ridiculous, stupid stuff. At some points, they even consider coming in and interrupting some of it, but they just sit there to find out, like, what is she going to do next? I understand, out of even just sheer curiosity's sake, she's presenting herself like a buffoon, and it's ridiculous. Just all the way around. I actually really don't like Jodi Arias. I have a lot of trouble being appreciative or unbiased with Jodi Arias. She's very self-centered, very, very materialistic. She's concerned about how she looks, how she presents herself. Even in very important times, instead of asking important questions about the case or about Travis, she asks things like, for instance, when she's about to have her mugshot taken, it's not a concern of the fact that she's about to have her mugshot taken for the suspicion of murder. She asks, can I put on some makeup so I look prettier during my mugshot? Like, why? Oh my God, why? So I really don't like Jodi Arias. But that being said, I do have the mental capacity to be able to look at it and still gain some academic usefulness from her ignorance. So with that in mind, we're going to look at this interview that was carried out right shortly after the incident. It's only a matter of days or weeks here, and maybe we can draw forth some of the micro expressions that she could have leaked, possibly. Let's see what happens, and we'll just analyze the shit out of this thing.
I guess that's really all I needed. Sorry. Don't roll the tape yet. Jodi, how did you...
Right off the bat, nobody cares what you look like, Jodi. You're a suspect of a brutal murder. Get over yourself and stop being so self-absorbed. From this point on, I am going to be a little bit more level-headed, but it's just stupid.
Meet Travis. And when?
We met at the Rainforest Cafe in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
How long ago was that?
It was in September of 2006.
What was it about him when you saw him that kind of drew you to him?
You know, there wasn't really any initial magnetic attraction. At the time, I shook his hand. He said, "Hi, I'm Travis." I said, "Hi, I'm Jodi." And his name was just another of many names that I had to remember. I was meeting hundreds of people that weekend.
So she's rehearsed this story, or she's very good at ad-libbing a story. She's adding in details that we don't care about. Don't care that she met a lot of people that weekend. We asked how she met Travis, but she's adding in these details. And she has this pattern, this verbal patterning, where she hopes to be able to divert attention from questions at hand with side stories and rabbit holes and all of these other things, to where it's messy to try to keep her on track. Now, during the initial interrogations, the interrogators do a good job at playing the good cop, bad cop, cutting through her crap, so to speak. But on this interview, she just gets to kind of run free and go wild with all of her side stories that nobody could care less about. But speaking non-verbally, right now this is where she's presenting pretty synchronized body language. When she's saying a no, she's shaking her head. Whenever she's recalling something, she's looking off to the side and squinting. All of these are genuine expressions and gestures, and this just means that she's telling the authentic truth here, and it's true. This is how they met, and this is what she did. So her body language is showing that. That just means that later on, perhaps when we see a variance from that, be it a nonverbal positive spike or a nonverbal negative spike, it could be an indicator of deception. At very least, it's an indicator of extra psychological mental processing. Let's keep watching.
We were all there for a big convention. And so it was right after I had finished eating with a group of people, and we got up and shook hands with a few people. He was among them. And then we began to walk throughout the casino, and he made it a point to keep walking next to me and keep me engaged in conversation. And we just, by the time we made it around to the big gold line in the front of the lobby, we had discovered a couple of common interests and sort of thing.
How did your friendship develop more?
Well, we hung out throughout the weekend, had a lot of fun, exchanged phone numbers. And it was one of those things where I didn't expect him to call. But he called me the very next day. And so I was like, oh, hi. And, he's a good conversationalist. He just kept me.
So she has a genuine flash of happiness centered around talking about Travis. And this goes in line. There is a very difficult, blurred line between hatred and love oftentimes, and chances are she really does love him, explaining the genuine happiness expression that comes from talking about Travis. It's not hard to cross that line into hatred, especially in the kind of relationship that Jodi and Travis had, where she's obsessive and he's off-putting. And there's this weird dynamic. It's very easy to cross that line. It makes sense psychologically for her to have gone from I love him to I'm going to destroy him in the physical and mental sense of the word. So you could see this genuine expression of joy on her face, but so far the rest of it has been pretty neutral body language, not any positive or negative spikes, even in general speaking. So let's just keep watching to see what else happens.
Engaged in conversation constantly, and he wanted to know about me, and people like to talk about themselves. So it was just one thing led to another, and we became great friends.
Did you two work together?
We worked together on occasion. We were with the same company, but we sort of worked in different departments.
Is that how you two met at the same?
Yes, we met at a convention where our company was.
This is what Jodi is living for, by the way. Attention. This is all that she wanted, was attention. She wanted attention from Travis. She wants attention in work. She wants attention from cameras. She wants attention as best as she can. She's very, very self-centered. Very, very self-centered. And it's made obvious throughout the many, many, many interviews and interrogations that she went through. It comes up again and again and again. So this is obvious. So you could see her just drinking in this attention. She's got this coy smile on, and you can just feel it. You can feel from her that she loves getting attention. That's her goal. Let's keep watching.
You mentioned that you guys love to travel together. Tell me a little bit about where you travel.
We traveled to, the first major place we traveled to was the Grand Canyon. We went there on a few occasions, have a soup.
So during her recollection, she regularly looks away, be it to the side, be it down, be it up. She looks away to recall. This is good because this is what people will commonly do, not all the time. If there's anything that you need to take away from this channel, the Observe channel, is that body language is not universal all the way. There are some universal things, but much of body language is specific to each person. One thing that is general, but not all the time, like I said, is that when people are recalling something, it's rare that they will look directly at a person's eyes because they have to visually process their memories or audibly process their memories to go through to find out what exactly happened. So when she's doing this, this is just showing that that's how she recalls. We've seen it multiple times already. So if there's a point where they ask her to remember something perhaps related to the case and she doesn't break eye contact like that, that's suspicious. That's just gonna be suspicious. I don't know. I really don't know if she does that here. I haven't really actually watched this interview because I wanted to maintain as unbiased a perspective of her body language as I could before making this video. But this is what we're unearthing so far. So far, from what we could see from her baseline, it lines up with just a very general baseline without too many variations from that. Let's keep watching to see if that stays consistent or not.
Pie with some friends, and we went to Sedona. We went all over New Mexico. We saw the Carlsbad Caverns. We saw Roswell. We saw the Balloon Fiesta. We went to a spa that was kind of renowned in Santa Fe.
Why was he a good traveling companion?
Oh, he was a great traveling companion for many reasons. Traveling with Travis was kind of like traveling with your own personal comedian, or serenader, or philosopher. He always, had great things to talk about that would make you think, and he was always bursting out in song. And
still seeing the same genuine happiness expression centered around Travis. This is just hammering home that idea that she really did have an unhealthy infatuation with Travis that she would characterize as love or affection. But it really was just an unhealthy obsession. But she's feeling the genuine happiness about talking about Travis. So that means that she did care about him. Does not excuse her for what she did, because that's still in the same ballpark if you remember from earlier.
he was a very funny guy, so there was never a shortage of laughs. And so he was just a great person to travel with. He had an enthusiasm and a lust for life that we always wanted to see what was around the next corner. So
Here's the interesting thing, is that she's not showing grief. They're talking about somebody whom she presumably killed, but she's showing no grief centered around that, no sadness centered around that, and she's not necessarily going to. It's very hard to pin down what a person would normally do in a situation unless you've been in that situation or you have been able to extensively study the person. Now, I have been able to do neither of those. But that being said, we're not seeing any subconscious leakage of any negative emotion. Specifically, look at her eyes, look at the corners of her nose, look at her mouth, look at her forehead. There's just nothing that's happening on her face that could be an indicator of a negative emotion. It's either blank or happy. She's having a great time getting the attention, or she's just reciting facts. There's no guilt, there's no shame, and it's odd to me. It just bothers me a bit.
I think that was something that we both shared.
Can you talk a little bit about your faith? I know you had mentioned in the previous interview that he actually baptized you.
He did.
What was
Yeah,
that?
the reason when a person is baptized into the church, they generally are able to choose the person they'd like to baptize them. And the reason I chose Travis was because he was very instrumental in bringing me into the church, and he was the first person to share the gospel with me and give me a copy of the Book of Mormon, and he challenged me to read it, and I did, and it was a decision that I made, and I could tell he was very honored when I asked him, and he, of course, was happy to do so. So, baptizing, I think, is a sacred thing.
How did your
This is interesting to me. Verbally speaking, I don't fully buy that she really bought into her faith as much as she was presenting. And JCS actually talks about this a little bit, that she feels like that if she presents this God-fearing persona to people, that they might buy into her lies a little bit more. And it never really worked for anybody. But speaking on her verbal patterns that she uses here, things like "I made that choice" and "it's a very sacred thing," and these extra details that are in there, it almost feels to me, and would raise a red flag to me if I were in the situation of an interviewer, that she's compensating, that perhaps that's not what she really buys into, nor does her life live up to that. She doesn't have a pattern of faith. She has a pattern of doing what she wants and whatever she feels like, regardless of whether or not it could even be considered criminal. I don't believe that she bought into her faith as much as she's trying to present. I do believe that it was partially a ploy to win Travis over more so, if that makes sense. People will go to all lengths to be able to get the person they like to like them back, and I feel like that was the case here.
friendship grow into this relationship that you shared?
We just continued. I lived in Palm Desert, California. He lived in Mesa. So our friendship was really over the phone every night, when all was said and done. When his day's work was done and my day's work was done, that, he would inevitably call, and we would talk for a while, anywhere from, half hour. Sometimes it would end up being 4 hours, and then we'd fall asleep and things like that. And then, with time, it just kind of progressed into a little bit more and a little bit more until we decided to make it more official.
And then you two actually ended up moving in together, didn't you?
No, we never lived together, actually. I spent a lot of time at his house, and we spent a lot of time.
Bracing gesture there. This is just a sign of her feeling lightly insecure about being in front of so many cameras, despite you could see on her face that she's enjoying it and engaged. The feet and the legs are oftentimes some of the more telling areas about a person because you rarely think of them. For instance, if you're standing in a group of people and you want to know who's involved in the conversation and interested in the conversation, look at their feet. They will likely be pointed towards the conversation. If they're facing outside of the circle, that's really their subconscious showing you where exactly they want to walk, which is outside of it. So if you're talking to somebody and you look at their feet and it's facing away from you, go ahead and cut the conversation short because they're bored or uninterested in the conversation. It's hurtful, but it's very telling. So when it pans down and it shows her kind of cradling her own knee like that with fingers interlaced, this is just a light blocking, embracing gesture. It just shows a little bit of insecurity, which is more what she's really feeling in light of all of the cameras rather than her face, which she is very attuned to displaying deceit with, if that makes sense. She's used to lying with her face, not so used to lying with her feet and legs. I hope that makes sense.
You mentioned that you really respected his opinion.
I did. Yeah, especially when it came to just knowledge of the gospel, things like that. All of that, all of the resources that one needs can be found on a website like lds.org. But he kind of gave me a more personal perspective on things. There were some questions where I just was like, why this? And he was able to answer those.
Were you in love with Travis?
Did they ask anything about where you could find information on LDS.org? No, they don't. But this is another example of where Jodi will try to throw out extra information to distract people's attention away from the issue at hand. She does this with the interrogator. She does this with interviewers. She does this everywhere. And it's also part of her trying to really hammer home that she's this faith-seeking girl, which she's not. She's not. But she's really trying to hammer it home, so she's spouting facts and rabbit trails and all this about the faith. This is just another example of what she does, what she did. And if you are in a relationship with somebody or a friendship or any level of relationship on any level with somebody and they do this sort of thing whenever there's a conflict, try to ignore the rabbit trails that fly off because it's just them trying to manipulate you away from the issue at hand. Don't let them do it. Stay strong and make sure that you know what you're wanting from it. That's just all that we can really draw from that right now.
I think that being in love and loving someone are two different things. And there was a point in time where we were in love, but it was short-lived.
Why did you guys break up?
There was sort of a breach of trust in our relationship.
So when they were talking about the being in love part and she said it was short-lived, she has a little bit of contempt slipping into her face. She has negative emotions about that, but also she has this feeling of moral or intellectual superiority. And that just all flows. Many people feel contempt about their past relationships. Not a big deal, but still something to take note of, I guess.
Your part or his part?
Both.
Guys, can you move past it?
No, we really couldn't move past it.
But you guys managed to keep dating.
We didn't date per se.
A little bit of disgust coming across her face there, and I don't know why that is exactly. That's just what's presenting to me. There is the distinct possibility that it wasn't as balanced as she claims it was, and maybe perhaps Travis was pulling a little bit harder to get out of things than she was, and in fact, that is what many of Travis's friends and family would say. So it could be discussed in relation to the fact that he pushed her out more than she wanted to. I'm not sure. That's just what I see and what a possible answer could be.
On the part of both of you guys, or?
I would say on my end, not so much jealousy, maybe a sense of insecurity, but that's just me. On his end, sometimes. I don't think it was warranted, but I took it as a compliment.
I was reading, I think it might have been his last note to you, May 1st this year, and it said, you're one of the hottest people he knew, and you must be making your town a lot hotter.
Oh yeah, he said
little bit of self-conscious, self-preening gesture there. That moving of the hair. Her hair didn't need to be moved. It's a preening gesture. She's aware of herself, the way she looks. And you can see, though, that she's not too ashamed of it. She does look away, which is a common flash of shame, but it's also used intentionally for people who love to receive compliments about themselves. They will try to play up the, oh, don't give me compliments. I feel so ashamed. But have you noticed like how pretty my hair is as well? But don't compliment me on it. And that kind of gives that vibe from her, that she's happy to receive those compliments. And chances are she sought after those compliments often, especially considering how materialistic she is and how self-absorbed she is. So even during this instance here, it's not pure shame and discomfort. It's this forced, fake, oh, don't compliment me kind of behavior that we're seeing from her.
So with the problems in your relationship in those 5 months start pretty much immediately, or was it 3 months into it, or kind of help us understand that?
It was pretty much our relationship. It was just an average. I don't want to say average. Nothing is average with Travis. But any problems that we had, they occurred really right toward the end, and that signaled the end of our relationship. It's nothing that we continue to dwell on and try to work out.
A lot of holding of the gaze there. She's not doing a lot of recollecting. Now, this doesn't mean that she's lying. Obviously, there's no universal tell that she's lying, but it is odd that it breaks her pattern from earlier. Her earlier nonverbal pattern, whereas she recollects something, she looks away. So this indicates that either one, she's lying, or two, she's rehearsed this and knows this so well that she doesn't have to really recall it. So far, everything else she's really pretty regularly had to recall, except for now. Now she's really holding gaze pretty steadily and not having to recall. Why that might be, I'm leaning towards she's lying, but there's not any concrete evidence for that. That's just my initial feeling from what I'm seeing her nonverbally display.
Town, or were you?
I was in Eureka, California.
When was the last time that you saw Travis?
Where were you? I was in wherever, California. And she doesn't break any eye contact. This is something that she has likely rehearsed a lot. And we also know that it is complete crap. She was indeed there. There's physical evidence on so many levels, irrefutable physical evidence on so many levels that she was there. And here's the thing. Either one, somebody had to go through such extreme lengths, both inside the law enforcement and outside the law enforcement, to frame her for killing Travis, or she did it. That's the only two options. Her behavior is so mellow, so even, so level-headed that it came across as odd to the people. There's still some leakage. As we've seen, there's some leakage here and there, but it was so level-headed that it was wrong. It was off. And that's what many of the law enforcement picked up on, and that's why they were so suspicious, so on and so forth. But it's just a fascinating aspect to me. But let's just keep watching.
Jodi, why do you think investigators believe that you killed Travis?
Well, there's a lot of forensics suggesting that I was, in his house.
There's not just a lot of forensics, Jodi. There's pictures that were recovered from an SD card that the metadata, which you can't really change very easily, says that it was time-stamped for the time right before he passed. It's irrefutable. And I can't. You know what? I'm actually going to wrap this up because this could go on for hours and hours and hours. And right now we've already pulled what we can from Jodi. It's just going to be reiterating the same things over and over and over again. So my analysis, I suppose, is that her facade, her persona, her play acting that she was doing is something that she's very practiced with. It's very smooth. The transition between average her and play acting her is darn near seamless, which just indicates that she's done it for a while. My bet is that she is masterful at manipulation. She's very good at it. She can talk her way out of corners that she gets into. That means that she would find herself in something like sales or customer service because that's very reliant on your ability to communicate and communicate quickly and think on your feet. And she could do that. But the issue is that she has a certain go-to, and when she went to that go-to this time, it fell apart because it didn't work in the circumstances. So when we're seeing her and we can see some of these odd tells from her specifically, let's talk about the eye contact thing. She breaks eye contact while recollecting. Genuinely recollecting. We saw that again and again and again and again. And then when there's these times that there are important questions and she doesn't break eye contact, it is then a red flag indicating that she either rehearses or is lying. And so these sorts of characteristics are something that you can use to see the world around you still. And this doesn't have to be just in relationships. This can be anywhere. Now, the more time you get to spend with a person, the better you're going to be able to read them. So in this sort of instance, I would still need to spend hours and hours and hours with Jodi. I have already to an extent, but not nearly as much. And something that I want to make super clear, especially for people who are maybe a little bit cynical of body language and how to read it. Anything that you see on YouTube is going to be a pretty watered down version of what needs to actually occur. It's not a superpower. It's definitely a science based off of gathering data. And once you gather enough data, then you can get to an answer. And if you watch another body language analyst or anybody who says that they know body language and they say for certain, this is guaranteed this, that means they're lying to you. They are blowing smoke up your butt at that point because they can't. They can't know, unless it's one of those cases where it's like here. I can know that she's lying because we already know she's lying. The case is closed. We've seen the evidence and she's already convicted as guilty. Like, there's no question there. But if it's not that, then the person who is analyzing has to spend hours and hours and days and weeks to be able to fully flesh out a behavioral pattern for the person they're interrogating. The more time you spend, the more accuracy you're going to get. There's the possibility that you can do a quick flash read, relying on generalities and perhaps a loose baseline. And it can be accurate. And the more practice you put in, obviously the more accurate it's going to get. But if you want certain results in nonverbal communication reading, you have to be willing to put in the time.
All right, so Ruby Franke was the face of the 8 Passengers YouTube channel, which showcased her family's everyday life, found herself in the eye of a legal storm. Arrested at 9:33 p.m. on August 30th in Ivins, Utah, Ruby, alongside her business associate Jodi Hildebrand, was charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse. The unsettling saga began with a desperate escape. A child emerged from a window in Ivins, Utah, seeking help. This house, owned by Hildebrand, would soon become the epicenter of harrowing abuse allegations against both Ruby and Jodi. Distressingly, the child, upon reaching a neighbor's home, exhibited signs of abuse such as duct tape remnants around their ankles and wrists. This prompted the neighbors to notify the authorities. Subsequent evaluations painted a grim picture. The child showed signs of severe wounds and malnourishment. The investigations didn't stop there. Another child found in the same house displayed strikingly similar malnourishment symptoms. Notably, a YouTube video from Ruby was shot at the very location just days prior to the arrests. This footage was deemed as evidence for Ruby's presence during the abuse and neglect. The ensuing search of the premises corroborated the children's testimonies, resulting in 4 minors being taken into the protective custody of the Department of Child and Family Services. The 8 Passengers channel, which once boasted 2.5 million subscribers, had been going through tumultuous times. After Ruby ventured onto a new controversial platform and certain members vanished, the channel eventually went offline. Previous allegations of misconduct had plagued the Franke family, stemming from controversial decisions like Ruby refusing to give her daughter a forgotten packed lunch, to Chad, one of her sons, revealing that he was sleeping on a beanbag as a disciplinary measure for some time. Such events were not overlooked. Numerous investigative YouTube channels dissected the Franke's content, drawing attention to the perceived mistreatments The narrative grew so intense that the family defended themselves in interviews, stating that they were merely teaching their children about the consequences of their actions. However, with the rise of Connections, a new channel Ruby founded with Hildebrandt, the controversies intensified. Described as a support group for mothers, the channel was immediately deemed suspicious by many. Statements from the duo, which included controversial opinions on parental love, child privacy, and derogatory comments on diverse communities, further fueled criticisms. Ruby's association with Connections might have been the breaking point for her eldest daughter, Sherry, who later distanced herself from her immediate family and their beliefs. Franke and Hildebrandt's arrests have thus highlighted a deeper, darker side to their public persona. In Utah, aggravated child abuse encompasses acts like intentional starvation, causing head injuries through shaking or striking, and even suffocation. Convictions could lead to a 15-year prison term and fines of up to $10,000. Following the arrest, Sherry expressed her relief on Instagram, stating that she and her family had been trying to alert the authority for years. Questions still loom around the details and involvement of other family members.
Something we will be sure to continue seeing updates on as time goes on. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the nonverbal communication and some of these more controversial moments across the 8 Passengers channel, so we could be able to see the psychology behind everybody that's involved. Perhaps there's some other dynamics that haven't been mentioned, something along those lines. However, let's go ahead and dive directly into the footage itself.
They're gonna think you're torturing him. Stop it. I know you're not, but it looks like you are. Okay, Russell. I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
Very
Chad,
nutritious.
what are you doing?
Gonna go ahead and pause that there. So we're seeing the roughhousing, some kids just roughhousing as they do when they're children. And even though this is a very lighthearted, small, short clip of this specific instance, we're already able to see some of the dynamic between the children and the parents with this already. If I have to tell you one more time, I'm going to revoke your right to eat. They had displayed and presented this idea that a child's right to eat wasn't a right and they could remove it and things like that, and that's simply not true. But there's not too much non-verbally around that specific little clip here, so we're going to keep watching through this just to see how this dynamic continues to play out, the power plays between the parents and the children on this. Let's keep watching.
What are you doing over there? You no texting at the dinner table. No texting.
Let me see it. Let me see it. We should clarify that in our house, all our kids know that cell phones are free game for parents, so we can monitor safety.
Yeah, no kid ever said, "Yay, I'm so glad my parents read my text messages." Said no.
All right, so already we're seeing a pretty substantial break in the kids' right to privacy as well. Now, this is obviously going to be a matter of debate among the people on the internet. However, what I do want to be able to make immediate note of is that the father and the mother, they're both saying, oh, well, we're doing this so that we can make sure that our kids are being safe. And immediately thereafter, what they end up doing instead is just using this as an invasive privacy so that they can pick on or make fun of their child. So right away, we're already seeing that this is a power trip for the parents during this time. So let's go ahead and pay attention to some of the nonverbals around this.
I really like you. Hold on.
I did not say that.
How do you work this stupid phone?
The only downside to giving your kids a flip phone is I swear I have to remember how to work it every time I go through it. Who are you texting?
Any girlfriend?
Whoa. I really like you. I saw you in my dreams last night.
I'm telling you, it's not her, it was her brother. Look, go down. She said, I'm so sorry, that was my brother.
Did she?
I saw you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So We're already seeing the child. He's sitting small at the table. He's keeping his arms folded in and tucked in. On occasion, we'll see some repositioning as the dad's going through his text messages and reading them out loud so the entire family can hear. We're seeing this breach in privacy already, seeing that non-verbally play out. The other two children are just kind of feeding into the scenario itself. Also, there is a camera being turned on and pointed at them, so there is going to be a level of performatism that has to pop out here. But so far, we're just getting a pretty clear dynamic as to how the power imbalance went in this family structure.
I saw you in.
Oh my gosh, sorry, that was my brother. What is the nature of your relationship with this individual? I mean, there's like 300 texts in here.
Do you like her, or do you just like her? She's a new friend.
That is really, really messy. I don't know.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So the answer to the question there is that the child does like this other person, but we can tell that this is something that's uncomfortable for him to be able to talk about because of two different things. Initially, he calls attention away from what's going on to the messiness of what he's doing, wanting to try to be able to divert a little bit of this heat that his parents are laying on for this negligible thing. And then immediately after that, he tucks back in, leans back, and he answers with an increase of pitch, an increase of tone, and a shrinking down. This is all insecurity and uncertainty. And he says, I don't know. And so with that sort of answer in there, along with the other diversion of attention, we could rest fairly certain that he did, in fact, have on some level a crush on this other person. But when it really boils down to it, it's really neither here nor there. So that's what we're seeing from this so far non-verbally. Let's see how the parents handle it.
I stayed in with her, and he likes her.
Does she like you back?
Probably. No, she thinks we don't.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
Okay. So I'm not sure what the context around this small clip is, but he's about to start talking about the instance with the beanbag that I mentioned in the intro to this video, where he has been sleeping on a beanbag rather than in his bedroom. And so he's bringing that up, that he's been on a beanbag for 7 months. The mom does a slight flash of fear with the pulling of the corners of the mouth downwards and to the side, and the strain in the neck and the hunching up of the shoulders here. There's a fear and uncertainty as she's caught out in something that she even deems as semi-inappropriate. Otherwise, she wouldn't have the defensiveness and fear that would come in. She also has a big smile and tries to laugh it off by saying, I don't think that the audience knew about this side of things, but it's now out in the open here. And we could see non-verbally speaking that even she on some level is aware that what she is doing or what her and her husband are doing is not good parenting. Let's keep watching.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and then they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago. I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. So.
This is also fairly enlightening to see that the son is not dead positive in and of himself as to what the reason for this sort of disciplinary action was being taken upon him. That lets us know a little bit of the context of how the house goes. Perhaps these disciplinary actions were done rather frivolously or not communicated around so that some of the lessons behind it are lost, things like that. And to which the response is that the parents need to communicate a little bit better and maybe find a way to communicate better with the child, the human being child that they're raising. Let's see what this all plays out as.
It's pretty funny, but now that I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, and he's like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on.
Do you think it's funny? Because...
And then I walked...
I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. So that's the reason for him not having a bed for 7 months, is that he pranked his younger sibling into getting out of bed at ungodly hours in the morning, getting all dressed. We've even probably seen videos similar to these sorts of pranks online. They're not very harmful. The very worst that happens is that there has to be some unpacking and maybe getting back into bed and some disappointment centered around that. It's not the kindest of pranks, but most pranks aren't. I will say with absolute certainty that prank did not merit 7 months without a bed. That's not appropriate at all.
So what we're seeing across the mother's face during this time, while he's talking about this and having some humor around the prank, and you could even hear other kids in the room laughing along with that, is you could see a level of contempt and disgust across her face in regards to that. So she's having very negative emotions to the actions of her child. And we also can fully now see that if she has these negative emotions, that she's very willing to give out punishment and discipline that is beyond the appropriate amount. So let's see how that plays.
And then I walk out.
If you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
It was not funny.
Russell got the big bedroom and Chad got the smaller bedroom. And Russell's bigger bedroom also had a bathroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room. Abby.
Okay, so Chad, bigger brother, younger brother, has room with the bathroom. Bigger brother doesn't actually even have a room. He gets to sleep on a beanbag. So again, this is an area of mishandling of power within a family dynamic. These parents' behavior towards their kids is always going to be online for the kids to be able to know for certain that their parents were behaving horribly. Yes, this doesn't clear the kids up on any level of the kids' whatever misbehaviors and whatnot, but the parents' response to that is not appropriate. Let's keep watching.
Abby, we took the phone away from Abby in November. And you may never get the phone back.
Probably not.
No, I have no friends.
You can play with friends.
No, like I don't have friends.
I don't have friends either.
I literally told my friends I'm not hanging out with them anymore.
It's because they're
They say some pretty messed up stuff.
I don't even know where they live. They're pretty far away.
So, summer goal, become the best athlete I possibly can.
Gonna go ahead and pause that there. So that is also another thing that adds context to this. I'm trying to watch the kids' nonverbal communication in regards to how they're addressing their mother. And the mother has a fairly blank expression on her face as the kids are saying something that's rather troubling. I don't have friends. I told my friends I don't want to hang out because of the things that were being said around that. So what we're hearing is also a level of isolation being done by the parents that's encouraging their kids to not have a social circle, which is not great. It's not a good way for a human brain to develop, especially throughout the ages of high school and whatnot, as things are really beginning to become concrete in a person's mind and an understanding of themselves. Having social interactions and the freedom to do so is a very important part. And then we're also seeing that on the nonverbal level, that there's only a level of discomfort from the kids and a level of detachment from the mother. So let's just keep watching. Yeah.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
Grandma, he's so bad.
Okay. This is just bullying behavior. This is the mother acting as much of a child as her child is. If you cut one more thing in the house, I'm going to cut the head off of your toy. So we're seeing that. And then non-verbally, I've blurred out the child's face because I don't want to make this about the child. However, throughout that, which you won't see, there is genuine fear and sadness that comes into the child's face when the mother says, yeah, I'm just going to cut the head off of your favorite toy because I'm in a bad mood about what you've done as a child. And again, these are just laying foundations for these kids' understanding and appreciation of the parental figures in their life. Maybe that's what those parents want to be in life. From what I'm seeing and gathering from their behavior so far, it seems as though they're paving that way for themselves quite well. But that's not what a kid needs as a parent. So we're going to keep going through this and just gathering more information.
So what are you going to do?
Are you going to cut anything else? No.
You promise? Look at Mama. I just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often.
Okay. Just that response non-verbally. Kid didn't pack a lunch or didn't have a lunch packed, and the teacher was concerned because the kid is going hungry and said to the mother, the caretaker, the one who's in charge of taking care of the children that they brought into the world, Can you bring a meal? Her response to this is a lip compression mixed with disgust. So it's biting back something negative mixed in with disgust. And now she's about to dive into some sort of, this is the kids' fault, not mine as a parent. So let's see.
Happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch.
Parents should be uncomfortable with their kids being hungry because they don't have food. If you're not uncomfortable with that, you're being a bad parent. So yes, the teacher was uncomfortable, and our glowing angel here is showing indicators of dismissal. We're seeing that with the heavy blinks and the looks away. We're also hearing that with the articulation that she's using in her phrasing as well. All of this is showing condescension towards the teacher for the teacher's concern about her own child. So let's just hear why there's this level of condescending from Ruby during this.
And it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. And hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch. I'm going to explain the rules to this.
7?
Okay, so again, we're hearing just another area where it seems as though the parental figure, the caretaker, is behaving and responding vengefully towards the person they are caring for. And in this specific scenario, it's a parent to child. The child never chooses to come into the family that they're in. The child just has to show up and deal. It's the parent's responsibility to step above that, to become better than that, because they made the choice oftentimes to be able to bring that child in. Now, obviously, there are a lot of exceptions to that scenario, but even still, as an adult, as having gone through life and having this small, very new, delicate being in your charge, that means that you have to be better than them. You just have to be a better person than them. And it's up to the parent to be able to guide and healthily raise that child. Not this. This isn't that. This is vengeful. This is spiteful. This is selfish. This is not okay parenting. This doesn't encourage a tight family dynamic as it grows up. And we're seeing that show up as the family has fully dispersed, especially with the allegations coming out. Let's see this next clip.
To this.
7?
We're done. So you're all like, what? I have your attention now?
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? You're all going to listen? If you have something in the bag that you would like out, you can pay cash for it. So you learn the value of your items. Or you can give what? Dad, I'll let you take the conversation from here.
You can do an equivalent value chore to get it back.
What's it?
And whatever isn't claimed by the end of the day goes in the garbage.
All right, so that's the end of that. Those are just some of the clips centered around their very, very awful, tragic behavior. So this part at the very end as well. Another classic thing that I've seen is, again, the parents using their ability to discipline and power over their children to get work done around the house that they themselves don't want to do, but also try to hang that on, oh, I'm actually just teaching a lesson as to the value of these items. Now, I don't know what the items are. I don't know what the context around this is. Perhaps it is a good system for the kids to be able to work to get the items back. However, having the items thrown away afterwards is not parenting. So seeing this come out here, we're seeing very, very clearly the mindset that goes behind all of the parenting styles that was in that family. I think that it's a very good thing that the law enforcement was involved and that now the kids are being able to be removed from this sort of parental environment. It's not healthy. It's not going to raise them well. It's going to cause them plenty of psychological difficulty in the future as they have to unpack how to trust people in authority and figure out how they themselves can take up their own space in their day-to-day lives, because they've been trained and shown and abused into a position of living so small and to the whims of their parents that they themselves will have difficulty establishing their own identity. So we're seeing that come out, again, non-verbally throughout all of this. We saw levels of disgust and contempt and dismissal and vengeance and everything negative towards these kids. Whereas on the kids' side, we're seeing levels of fear, we're seeing sadness, we're seeing pain, we're seeing uncertainty, we're seeing defensiveness come out from that. And that's just not a healthy parent to child relationship.